Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for your question, sister. And I'm really impressed with your concerns for the Western world and that you're living in as a young Muslim teenager. Yeah, it's quite different from predominantly Muslim countries, although it's not extremely different. And that is to say that corruption and hypersexuality and un-Islamic haram behaviors do occur all over the world, even in Muslim countries, not to the degree that it occurs in westernized worlds. However, it still does occur. I would encourage you to try to get past your family's perspective, which you described as, we're living in a world full of corruption and we're living in very scary times. While yes, that is true to a certain degree, we're also living in times where we can really grow and make a difference, and we can acclimate to our situations to the point where it's a benefit to us, and also it can be a benefit to others. With that said, I would kindly suggest that you make a list of the things that are scaring you, things that are, haram in your eyes, Islamically, things that you feel are, desensitized. Make a list of the negatives that you see. And some of these you've outlined in your question, and that's why I brought them to the answer. Make a list of the negatives that you see around you, and underneath that, just jot a few sentences of how this negative action or behaviors that you see around you affects you. Or does it even affect you? Does it have to affect you? A lot of times we see things that are haram, that are not Islamic, going on around us, and they don't have to affect us. For example, if there's movies out that are like more pornographic or show a lot of sexuality, we don't have to go and see those movies. You know what I'm saying? We can refrain from these things. I would also suggest that you make a list of the positives that are around you. I'm not sure how long you've been in the Western world, possibly not long. However, I would take this opportunity to really explore the Islamic community around you, the positives of the place that you're living. Not all segments of Western society is scary and immoral. A portion of it is, but not all of it is. And I kindly urge you to seek out that part that is not. Seek out those parts that are positive, that do uphold Islamic values, or perhaps are just enjoyable. Maybe there's a park near your home that you can enjoy going to, or maybe there's classes that you can take that would benefit you. I would also encourage you to get involved in your Islamic community, take classes at the masjid, get involved with the sisters, and try to enjoy life. There's trials and tribulations, and there's hardships, and there's corruption everywhere. And it's been that way since, the days of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It is our duty as Muslims, I believe, to get past that, try to correct it if we can, and if we can't, not let it affect our lives or our Islamic values. You had mentioned that you developed this fear through becoming an adolescent, and you were fearing the hypersexualized world that you lived in. And I'm just wondering how that equates and relates to your being a young woman, a young Muslim woman, with your own desires and needs, and if you are fearing that you may fall into temptation or be affected by the hypersexualized, quote unquote, world that you live in. If that's the case, I would kindly suggest that you analyze yourself and your relationship with Allah and try to draw closer to Him, and address those issues within yourself. Because again, we don't have to participate and partake in haram things, and we don't have to watch or listen, to hyper-sexualized, corrupt media, stores, workplaces, etc. We don't have to participate in that if we don't want to. We can find other alternatives. You had discussed that you had a new fear for a man that you knew, that you cared about, and he was in your family. You stated that he was very kind, generous, and good, a decent person. However, you were afraid when you went to his Facebook account that you saw pages he was following, and his friends were about 1,000 or so. You seem very concerned with social media, Snapchat, and fearing corruption. I would just like to make a point on this. Snapchat and Facebook and Twitter and the social media platforms that young people engage in today can become an addiction. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person or that they're engaging in haram behaviors. However, anything in an excess is not healthy. So possibly the person that you're interested in just needs to reach a balance. And we have to remember that we're all not perfect. We fall very, short from being perfect. Alhamdulillah, that's why we have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to go to pray and ask for forgiveness. So while we're striving towards perfection, please, sister, to remember that none of us are perfect. If this young man is Islamic in all other ways, and this is the only thing that you're concerned about, I would definitely, speak with him about it if you guys do talk. Just express your concerns and see what his response is. Also, I would not worry a whole lot about his Snapchat and his social media sites. Again, if he is a good practicing Muslim, that will show in his behaviors, that will show in the way he treats you, that will show in the things that he does in his own life. As far as worrying about, does he lower his gaze when he walks? Does he get tempted through highly sexualized society? Does he go out late at night? Those are only things that he can answer. Those are only things that he knows. However, you worrying about it and being obsessed with it right now is not healthy for you. If you're uncomfortable in his presence because of these things, I would kindly suggest that maybe, you leave it alone, leave the relationship alone, and not, pursue marriage with this person. However, if you feel that it's just a perception that you have and it's an obsession that you keep thinking about, perhaps you might want to seek out counseling in your area and speak with a counselor about the thoughts that keep coming to your mind about him and other things within the Western world. Yes, we have balance everywhere. Sometimes balance doesn't always come when we want it or how we want it, but all things eventually balance out. And inshallah, you can find that balance within yourself. And it's very important to have balance in life. If we worry too much, it makes us sick. If we don't attend to our health, it can get worse. If we don't have good family relationships, we may become depressed or sad. If we don't have friends, we won't, have social support and we'll feel lonely. If we don't spend enough time studying Islam and cultivating a relationship with Allah, then we become lost. So as you can see, there's a balance in life. We have to create that balance often. We have to make the effort. And I would kindly suggest that you make the effort to create the balance in the Western world between what you know is right, what you think is right, and what is right. And by saying that, what I mean is you have to find the reality of your thoughts, and you have to make your lists of what is actually going on around you that is positive and negative, how it affects you, how it doesn't pertain to you, and how things do pertain to you, and the positive effect that they can have on you. So, sister, I would kindly suggest that you make these lists of the positives and negatives and try not to take to heart, your parents', fears of, all the corruption and living in end times. Perhaps it is true. However, you don't have to assimilate it so deeply that you can't function or you can't live or you can't enjoy life. You have to create your own perceptions and your own path, separate of the fears that your parents may have. I'm sure that your parents have a lot of fears, coming over, to the Western world from a Muslim country. That's very understandable. However, you don't have to fully adapt those fears. I suggest that you remain vigilant, and I suggest that you, take time to adapt to your new surroundings. But I also ask that you give it a chance, because there's a lot of beautiful things in the Western world, and there's a lot of good people, despite, the media, mass media propaganda. There's a lot of good people in the Western world, Muslim and non-Muslim. So I invite you to explore that, and I encourage you to stay close to your Muslim sisters. And I also encourage you to speak with a therapist if, the thoughts keep coming to your mind about, the corruption and hypersexuality, and also the issue with the boy. Sometimes our thoughts can run away with us, especially in times of stress. And if you just move to a new country, if you've only been there for a few years, moving is a big stressor, and it can trigger a lot of different things within us emotionally. And possibly that's what you're going through. I mean, I can't imagine going to a new country or a new place where everything is totally different. And my parents are telling me, oh, this is so corrupt here. This is horrible. We're living in end times. And I mean, that would probably really freak me out. I would probably be scared, especially if I didn't know anybody or I wasn't really connected with my community. So I encourage you to please do, try to put that aside and connect with the Islamic community and with sisters, and just get to know the positive things around you. Be aware of the negative, but focus on the positive. Well, we wish you the best, sister. You're in our prayers, and please let us know how you're doing.